Speak to me now, ancestors. May the ancestors bless your hands and your spirit, Ede.
In the ancient city of Benin, a kingdom celebrated for its intricate art and unrivaled craftsmanship, there lived an old carver named Ede. The city, known for its wealth and power, was also famous for its bronze works, masterpieces of artistry that captured the souls of the kingdom's history, engraved with the wisdom of the kings and the spirits of the ancestors. These bronzes were not just objects, but vessels of memory, storytelling, and power. Ede had inherited this sacred art from his father, who had learned it from his own father. For generations, the Ede family had been the custodians of Benin's most sacred craft, carving the faces of the Orbas, the warriors, and the great leaders who had shaped the kingdom. The old man, now frail but steadfast, had a reputation that spread far and wide. His hands, though gnarled and weathered by age, still moved with an almost divine precision. His skill with the chisel was unmatched, and it was said that when he carved, the very essence of the person he was sculpting came alive within the bronze. One fateful day, as the sun sank low in the sky, a royal messenger arrived at Ede's humble workshop. He was draped in fine cloth, his sandals tapping against the hard stone as he entered. His eyes were stern but respectful as he addressed Ede. "Old carver," the messenger began, "the Oba has summoned you. He desires a series of bronze heads to honor the ancestors of Benin. You are to create them in his name, with all the skill you possess." Ede, who had spent most of his life in quiet solitude, was stunned. It had been years since the Oba had called upon him for such a task, but the honor was clear. To create art for the king was the highest recognition for any craftsman, and to honor the ancestors in this way was his sacred responsibility. He bowed his head deeply. "I will do as commanded, my lord," Ede replied, his voice steady but filled with emotion. The messenger handed Ede a small scroll, which bore the seal of the Oba. It contained the specifications for the project. Each head was to represent one of the great kings of the past, and the likenesses must be as accurate as possible. The task was not only about physical likeness but spiritual integrity. Ede was to carve not just the face but to capture the essence of the kings, their courage, wisdom, and the burdens of their rule. Ede wasted no time. He began at once to gather his materials, the finest bronze, which he smelted with care and precision. The fire in his heart crackled, casting flickering shadows against the walls of his modest workshop. He worked day and night, each strike of his chisel bringing him closer to the completion of the great task. As he worked, the air seemed to hum with something beyond the ordinary, as if the bronze itself was alive with the weight of history. Days passed, and the heads began to take shape. Each one was a masterpiece, capturing the stoic strength of the kings, the fierce determination of warriors, and the regal dignity of the rulers who had shaped Benin's destiny. The faces were detailed, with eyes that seemed to peer into the soul of anyone who dared to look into them. But as Ede continued his work, something strange began to happen. Late one night, after he had finished his carving for the day, a soft whisper filled the air. It was barely audible at first, just a faint murmur, like the wind rustling through the trees. But then, as the night deepened, the whisper grew louder, until it seemed to echo through the walls of the workshop. Ede froze, his heart hammering in his chest. He turned slowly to face the bronze heads. To his astonishment, the eyes of the largest head, carved to honor the first great Okpa of Benin, seemed to glisten in the dim light. And then the whispering began again. "Ede, His breath caught in his throat. He had heard of such things, stories passed down through generations of the spirits of the ancestors residing within the works of the artisans. But he had never truly believed it. Yet now, as the whispers grew clearer, he knew that something supernatural was unfolding before him. Ed, the voice continued, softer now, as if the bronze itself was speaking to him. Listen, listen to the tales of the past. The old carver stepped closer to the head, his eyes wide with wonder. It was as if the Oba's ancestors were speaking to him, whispering secrets of the past that had long been forgotten. The head, with its regal features, seemed to come alive before him, and the voice of the past filled the room. Long ago, the kings of Benin were not just rulers of men, but of spirits. They wielded power that could command the heavens and the earth, but their power came at a great cost. The bronze head began to tell tales, stories of kings who had led great armies into battle, of warriors who had fallen in defense of their land, of wise rulers who had maintained peace, and of kings whose ambition had led them to dark places. The secrets that the bronze heads shared were the secrets of the kingdom itself, hidden truths that only those who respected the past would understand. Ede listened, rapt, as the voices of the past kings poured forth. The stories were filled with passion, pride, and pain. He heard of the sacrifices made to protect the kingdom, the blood spilled in battle, the alliances formed in times of need, and the betrayals that had almost torn the kingdom apart. He learned of kings who had ruled with wisdom and kindness, and of those who had fallen victim to their own arrogance and greed. As the night wore on, Ede found himself overwhelmed by the weight of the knowledge the bronze heads were imparting. He felt the presence of the kings, standing beside him, guiding his hand as he walked. The whispers seemed to grow louder, more insistent. Carve, carve with all your heart, Ed, the voices urged. Capture the soul of Benin. But remember, some truths are meant to remain hidden. Ede's hands trembled as he continued his work. He could feel the energy of the ancestors flowing through him, filling him with a sense of responsibility that was both humbling and terrifying. He knew that the heads he was creating were not just representations of the kings, they were vessels of power, spirits bound to the metal. He was not merely carving the likenesses of the past, he was capturing their souls. As dawn broke, the whispers faded. Ede stepped back from his work, his heart heavy with the knowledge he had gained. He had been entrusted with the secrets of the kingdom's past, secrets that were not for the world to hear. The heads he had created were not just art, they were sacred objects, and the stories they held could change the future of Benin if revealed. The next day, Ede took the heads to the palace where the Orba awaited. The king gazed upon the sculptures, his eyes wide with admiration. Old carver, the Orba said, his voice thick with emotion. These heads are more than I could have ever imagined. You have captured the essence of our kingdom's past. Ede bowed, his heart heavy. I have done as you asked, my king, but I beg you never speak of the whispers I have heard. Some truths are better left in the past. The Oba regarded Ede carefully. You are wise, old carver. I will honor your request. For the rest of his life, Ede kept the secret of the talking bronze heads. He died quietly in his sleep, his legacy etched in bronze. His workshop, though abandoned, was said to still echo with the whispers of the past, carrying the voices of the kings who had shaped Benin. The people of Benin continued to honor the ancestors through their art, but the tale of the talking bronze heads was passed down in hushed tones, a reminder that the past is not just a collection of stories, it is a living force, a power that must be respected. The secrets of the kings, it seemed, were never truly forgotten. They lived on, carried in the metal, in the whispers, and in the hearts of those who listened.